how to lay out your pamphlet. So by this point, you've chosen your talk. Last week, you looked at a single spread and evaluated different ways to lay out and design that one spread. This week, you're going to be coming into InDesign and laying out the entire booklet. So this is where it gets a little more technical, and we talk about things like paragraph and character styles, how to lay out a multi-page document. So you will be doing this in InDesign. I know it might be tempting to do it in Illustrator if that's what you're more familiar with, but really InDesign is king when it comes to laying out multi-page documents and is like the industry standard. So that's what we're going to be doing it in. So as you can see, I'm just going to walk you through start to finish how, if I were to be doing this project, where I would start, how I would go about it, and hopefully you kind of see the process. So just hang in there with me. This might be a little bit of a longer video. So we're going to start a new document, and it's going to be 7 by 10. That was specified in the project brief. If you make sure that this little preview box is checked, you can see behind this dialog box exactly what's happening, the changes that are made live. So I've set it to 12 pages, which will translate to 6 spreads. Make sure that facing pages is checked so you see them side by side. And let's see, if you like, you can start editing the columns right here in this initial box, or you can always go back in and change that later. So I'm going to start by doing at least, I would say at least 4 columns. I like to do something maybe more like 6 or 8. And basically, you always want to have a grid. Anytime you're laying out large pieces of text or body copy like a book or a magazine, you always want a grid, because the grid will show you exactly where to put elements. So you know, well, I always have a headline that starts at the 2nd column, and my paragraphs always start at the 3rd column. It just is really helpful when you're getting into multiple pages to know exactly where you can put items so that they'll match up on every page. In the same vein, you also want to make sure your margins are how you want them, so I'm going to increase mine a little bit. That feels about right. And again, you can always go back and change these later. The bleed, we don't need to worry about that right now. All right, so I hit create, and you can see over here we have all the pages laid out. So InDesign lays it out as if you were looking at the book. So the first page, you see you only have 1 page because that would be the front cover. Then once you get into the interior spreads, they're side by side here, 2 and 3, 4, 5, all the way till you get to the back cover. And again, there's just 1 cover because that's the back. So before we go any further, I'm just going to jump into the layout. And as you see, we already added the columns, but now I'm going to want to add the rows. So create guides. I already did my columns. You can do both of them in this dialog box if you prefer. It's all up to you. So I'm going to hit preview, and then I want to set some rows in here too. And make sure that they're set to margins and not page. So let's see. I like to do even numbers. So about 10 feels good. All right. So you might notice, though, that that only applied it to this first page. So over here, if you don't know what master pages are, up here it says A master. When we click on that, it brings us to just this window. So basically, everything that is on these master pages will be put on all of these other pages. So this is a great place to do things like page numbers or headers, or like if you're publishing a book and you want it to say chapter 5 on every page, this is where you would do it. So make sure both are selected, and then for the 3rd time we'll come over here to create guides and then do, there we go, let's do 12. Okay, now it should be on every page, because see the little A in the corner tells us that every page here corresponds to the A master page. And you can have as many master pages as you want. You can have B, C, D, and then you would just hold and drag it to apply it to the specific pages. So there you go. So we have these all set up now, and now we're ready to start diving into our formatting. Okay, so I've already selected my talk. Is the one by Sister Franco from this last conference. So I've already copied it off the website here, so it's in my clipboard. It's been copied. And so before I paste it in here, I need a place to paste it, right? So we're not going to start with the front cover, obviously. We're going to start with the first interior spread. And I think starting on the right side is best, since that's normally like when you open a book or something, usually you start on the right, and this is either blank or a photo or a pull quote or something. So I'm going to start on the right, and I'm just going to start by drawing the boxes where I want the text to go. So with the text tool selected, if my computer catches up here. I have a slow computer just like everybody else. It always seems to be lagging. All right, I'm going to draw the boxes. So I'm going to put one here and say that I decide that 3 columns is the width I want the text on this page. So I've got one box. And all right, we're ready to go. Okay, so the box is in there. And I can make it, maybe on this first page, I want it to be a full stretch column versus a half column. We can decide those things later. But now that it's in, I double click and I paste. Oh, very slow tonight. Okay, and it pasted in this strange font. So let's just go ahead and change that to Baskerville. So we don't have to look at that. All right, so we've got our text in here, and as you can see at the bottom, indicated by this little red plus, there's more text that can fit in this box. So when I'm ready to move on and paste the text again, I would just click this red plus and then paste it in the corresponding boxes below. So let's see. So we have this in here now, and there's kind of a couple ways you can do it. I think that I'm going to go through and just keep filling out the boxes on the whole thing and then going back and editing it. So I'll click this and I will paste it there. And you can see it made it really skinny. It just filled one column. But say on this page, I want this page to have 2 columns like this. And stretch it out again like that. Say on this page, I just want 1 column and I want it to stretch that far. I would start at this point choosing like maybe 2 column widths. So maybe you decide that in your booklet you're going to have this one where each column is 4 and 4, and that's having 2 columns, and then maybe your alternate is just doing one that's like 6 columns. And you rotate between the 4 column and the 6 column. But make sure that you choose a set amount so that on each page it doesn't change, because then that gets a little confusing. So if I said 6, then I would go back here and make that match 6. So I either have a 4 or a 6, and that's what I'm sticking to for my book. All right, here, maybe let's load the cursor. And maybe this page I want to do 4 column again. Maybe I want the blank space to be at the bottom. And then maybe I skip this page, excuse me, come back and put a cool pull quote there later. So let's move on to this one and do a 4 column, 2, 3, 4, and a 4. So basically we're just filling out the book. All right, and I see that we've hit the end there, and we still have some extra pages. Now, I mentioned before, if you've got 1.5 extra pages, you can just add a notes section. 3 is a bit too many, so we're going to play with our text later, and that's going to kind of stretch it out a little bit. When we add things like headlines and pull quotes, we'll need more space, so we'll fill out more of this. But maybe I'll just plan on making this last one a notes page. All right, so we have all of our text in here now, and now it's time to format. So this is where we talk about paragraph styles. So first I'm going to take this out here, the title, because I want that to be different than the body copy, obviously. I'm going to move this down a bit. I'm going to make a new box to put title in. All right, so then I start choosing my title. say I want it to be active. Oh, excuse me. I'm trying to think of the fonts in your class font pack. Accidents, grotesque. Let's see. Accidents, grotesque. And say I want it to be fairly large. Always make sure you turn off hyphenation. Kind of a personal pet peeve of mine, but also unless you're working in like a newspaper industry or a magazine industry when there's very specific like word counts for pages, you generally don't need hyphenation and it just looks better if you turn it off. So I'm going to take that out of there and put it in its own box here. There we go. And say I want this to also be in this active grotesque, but I want it to be much smaller. The byline, it's called a byline when you have the author's name, and I don't want it to be bold. Make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so I'm not going for the world's nice layout here, but kind of the quick and dirty version, but I'll make that smaller. Once you kind of decide how you want things to look, maybe you want that to be a different color. Just doing all this for the sake of demonstration. Let's say it's blue. All right, that looks good. Maybe I decide actually I want that in bold because it's a little weak right now. Okay, so say this is how I want this page to look. And I think it looks good. So then we want to set some styles. So we want to be able to use, well, I guess this article only has one headline, but if you had multiple headlines, you would want to use this same title in all of them. And let's just say, for argument's sake here, there's a subhead. She starts telling a personal story. We'll just call it that. And say I want my subhead to reflect this treatment here. So I'm going to pull that out into a separate little thing here. All right, so I've got all my elements lined up. I've got a subhead, I've got my text, everything looks good. But now, let's put that right here. That makes sense. Okay, now I need to start repeating these things. So like everywhere I have a subhead, let's say there's a subhead over here too, I want it to look the same as this treatment. So how do I do that? So you would select, when you nail down what you want this to look like, select the box, select the text, and then you're going to go up here to Window, Type and Tables, or excuse me, Styles, and then go to Paragraph Styles. All right, so we see over here that there's this default basic paragraph, but it's got a plus next to it. So basic paragraph just means it's the default, it's what InDesign has just automatically set up, but we want to change that. So we're going to do a new paragraph style. We're just going to ignore this basic paragraph and start in with our own styles. And we're going to call this one, right here, we're going to call it the headline or title. We'll type article title. And you can just leave these here. And there's kind of two ways to edit a paragraph style. So we can select what's here, which we already did, and it's going to pull all of these characteristics based on that. It's going to pull the color, the font size, the leading, the style, all of these things based on that. Or you can edit them individually over here. So we can change the text color, change all of this stuff. I find it easier to just actually in the document set those details and then just let it automatically fill in here rather than trying to play with the things in here. Okay, so this looks good. We're just gonna hit OK. All right, now we've seen our paragraph styles. We've had this new one added called article title. So anywhere there's an article title, we can select it and then click article title. Oops. Oh, let's try this again. There we go. And it would make the text we selected into the article title. Now, obviously we don't want our body copy to look like that, so we're going to undo that. But you should go through, once you kind of nail down what you want each part to look like, and there's a list of all the different styles you need to have over here in the week 12 instructions. So right here, you need to identify the body copy, headline, subhead, author, caption, notes, and headers and footers. Those are things you would use paragraph styles for. So this is really an exercise for you in your final Behance post and things. No one can see that you've set these up, but it's really beneficial to learn these. This document may only be 12 pages, but when you're working with documents that are hundreds of pages, you really need to have these set up. Otherwise, you're having to go through by hand, and every time there's a subhead, changing it to look the same. It's much easier to have this all set up. Now there's something called character styles, which is the same thing as paragraph styles, except it's applied to just individual words. Instead of whole blocks of text, it's like things that need to be italic or bold or superscript. So it's used a little bit less than paragraph styles, but it works the same way. All right, so let's jump back over here. Let's do another one. So let's select this text. And again, we're going to go new paragraph style. We'll call this one subhead. And we'll hit OK. Now, everywhere there's a subhead, so like right here, we would click that, click this. I don't know why that keeps popping up, but there you go. You might just have to click once. So it changed it to match this one. And then we can do that here too. Let's go subhead. Yeah, you just need to click once. So then we can go through and everywhere there's a subhead, we can make it have the same treatment. So we can do the same thing with a pull quote. So let's say we want to put a pull quote here. We're just going to fill it with placeholder text, some lorem ipsum. Say we want it to look like, just use the eyedropper. We want it to look like the title, but maybe a little smaller. And we want it to be regular, and say we want it to be a darker blue. Okay, so looks like a good pull quote. We'll put it there. And then say later on down here, we want a different pull quote. Fill the placeholder. So now we go back up here, make sure to select that, do a new paragraph style, pull quote. All right, and now down here, we just go to pull quote, and it makes it look just like that one. So that's the basics of paragraph style. Okay, so now you know how to use the paragraph styles, and you can go through and refine this. Obviously, this little example here is far from done, but I'm trying to think of some other things you would need to know. So you're going to need to add page numbers to all of these. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. In the master pages, go up here, make sure both are selected. You're going to, let's see where our grid is, use the type tool to draw a little box here. And then under type, say insert special character, markers, current page number. All right, so it puts that little A in there, which is a placeholder for whatever the current page number is. And we can change that to be whatever font we want, stylize it however we like. Well, for time's sake, I'll just choose this one, and then we'll say, sorry, that looks like it cut out there, but I think we were just about through with that tutorial of how to add the page numbers. So once you add the page numbers on the master pages, they will appear on all your other pages. So just make sure you do it to left and right side, and they should all be there. So if you have any other questions, just feel free to send me an email or leave them in the comments on this week's announcement post.